This is Divine Lifestyles with Tara Magalski. What is a divine lifestyle? Passion, purpose, and living in alignment with your truth. Thank you for tuning into Divine Lifestyles, feeding your spirit, mind, and body. I'm your host, Tara Magalski, and today's guest is a woman that I admire, Yar Khan, and she works with UNICEF and also a child protection specialist. And Cara joined UNICEF in 2007 after working 6 years with the UN food program in Ecuador, Dell Inc. in Panama, and as a private consultant in China. From UNICEF Angola, she was transferred to UNICEF China, then followed by UNICEF assignments in Botswana, Madagascar, Mozambique, Thailand, and most recently Haiti. So in Haiti, she recently served as a resource mobilization specialist, focal point for 2 years. So this woman is moving and shaking. And at the age of 30, she was diagnosed with a very rare recessive genetic condition, Hereditary Inclusion Body Myopathy. Your story really rocked my world, because not only did your courage and strength with how you handled your diagnosis really touch me, but it was really your class and dignity and how you approached your diagnosis and your newfound circumstances. So could you just tell us a little bit about your story up until all the things that you've done with UNICEF, up until the point where you found out about your condition?
Sure. It's an honor to be a part of your project. I knew at the age of 12 that I wanted to work for UNICEF, for the United Nations Children's Fund. I had been exposed to, say, social justice projects in school, and I was raised in Canada, and I'd actually seen a telethon to support starving children in Africa about the age of 6, and was quite disturbed and didn't understand why we couldn't just send dinner over to help them. So I sponsored my first child when I was 6 years old, having collected coins from the neighbors on my block. And always that sense of this is wrong and we have to do something to help them was just very clear to me from a young age. And then in school, in social studies class, we learned what the United Nations was. And then again, it was just very clear to me that, well, that's what I'm going to do when I grow up. I'm going to work for the United Nations because that's how you help poor people. And so I prepared myself. Every UN speech competition, writing competition, the World Summit of Children in 1995, I was the Canadian delegate chosen. Every social justice volunteer activity I could get involved with, whether it was raising money for cancer research or even to save animals with the World Wildlife Fund, I got involved because I understood from the UN colleagues or people that I knew that were older that you needed to have volunteer experience, you needed to have multiple languages, you need to have some sort of international experience, and then the degree. So I studied international development, I went to Ecuador, I learned Spanish, which at that time was my third language, having studied French in school, and started with the UN. And so I've always known what I wanted to do, what I was meant to do. And sort of traveled the world, wanted that international lifestyle. Having such a mixed background myself, my father's Indian, birth mother's English, stepmother's Chinese. We all have Canadian passports. Having grown up with multiple religions, Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, Catholicism, also, different languages, I think that there is a perspective that I had at a young age of differences and being tolerant and accepting of others. So by the time I was diagnosed at the age of 30, I had already lived in many countries around the world. I'd already been exposed to people who had far less than I had, and never would I ever have to suffer the way that they had. So up to the point, I think, when the diagnosis came as well, it was, well, you just figure it out. That was my response.
Wow. So tell me a little bit about when you found out about the diagnosis, how was that? What challenges were you facing?
The diagnosis itself getting the response was a relief. It was the 4 years before not knowing what was wrong. I used to teach Latin dancing, salsa.
Yeah.
And it's my greatest passion. I mean, now I can even hear a song, close my eyes, and I know what moves I'll do. And so I was falling in class or falling when I was doing choreography. And it was frustrating. I was frustrated. I was frustrated that, I was having these falls and we couldn't figure it out. I was frustrated with doctors, each wanting to do their own tests. So each one is going to cut you up. Each one is going to stick needles in you. Each one wants to hear the story over again. And I would just got to the point where I was like, read the file. You become very angry, and especially when they misdiagnose you. I was misdiagnosed with a terminal disease, and when you're thinking, oh my goodness, how do I tell my parents that we only have a couple of years left together? It's hard. You become almost a nervous wreck in a way. So when the diagnosis did come and they explained that it is a disease, it's a type of muscular dystrophy that leads to severe incapacity within 12 to 15 years of its onset, and there is no known treatment or cure, and that I should stay home, quit my international career, be with my parents, and get ready for a wheelchair, or even worse, that basically you're dying and you'll become a vegetable, it didn't make sense to me. I was like, whatever, because at the time it manifested itself as a limp, as if you had stubbed your toe. Mm-hmm. And there just was never in my mind, would it ever be an option that I would not continue with my career? I mean, this is what I do. This was me. Or this is me, that is my identity. And the attitude, I think, of sort of having to give up or succumb to something, that's not the way I was raised. And so I was offered a position in Angola, which is one of the poorest countries in the world, in Southern Africa. And I called my dad and I said, I'm moving to Angola. He said, great, wonderful. I said, where's Angola? I'm like, I'll get the atlas. We never, as a family, we've never sort of succumb to it. I don't even know if you could say succumb, because it's just something that I've embraced and figured out. And to be honest, I never imagined that it would progress to, I'm 37 years old and I use a walker. I have braces in my boots. I can never have children. And I never thought that would happen. But it's only now, I think, that I'm emotionally connected to it.
Yeah. And what do you think that was for you? Going deeper, was there a moment or a transformational catalyst that you had where you were able to connect?
I think that there's two separate things. I mean, the transformation, I don't think there was so much a transformation. I was just being me, and I am just being me. I always say, we'll just figure it out slowly but surely. I mean, everyone else around me freaks out when we see stairs or something complicated. I'm like, if I can manage 2 years in Haiti, I can manage the United States. Or hold my hand, help me, let's figure it out. Slowly but surely we'll get there.
Yeah.
And so I think though that the emotional connection, because I'm a very emotive person, but I can talk about my condition as if I'm, giving you a grocery shopping list. The emotional connection came last month when the doctor told me that my body had deteriorated so much, predominantly the hips and the back, that I would never be able to hold a pregnancy. And should I get pregnant, I would be left in a wheelchair. I didn't want to be in the position of having to choose between not having a child and being in a wheelchair. So I had to have the surgery done. And that was so sad for me, because I always wanted to have 5 children. And in my groups of friends, I'm known as the mama bear. I love to cook. I love to nurture. I love to take care. So I felt for the first time profound sadness and connected it to the disease. And it was the first time that I actually said, I not only live with a disability, but I have a severe health condition that is progressive, that is getting worse. This is going to get worse. And so I'm able to look at it though and feel the sadness. It's very sad that I can't have children. And it is sad to think that I will get worse, but I don't get depressed. There's a difference. You can feel sadness. You should allow yourself to have that emotion, but it doesn't control me. It doesn't control my day. It's a moment, you feel it. If I need to cry, I cry. And then you get on with your day. I mean, there is no sulking, not getting out of bed. There is no excuse, I'm not going to go to my horse riding today. There is no, I'm not going to do my job or be there for the people who need me just because I have a health impairment. I mean, Again, it's just being me.
Wow. I mean, just listening to you, you are strong. You are so strong, and you've turned this weakness into your power. I mean, I can hear it in your voice. You have, you've taken the circumstance and turned it into a life-inspired mission. And wow, what is next for you?
Well, it's interesting that you say that you sort of like use this as a life mission. I think that the dream was to work for UNICEF, and in that work, of which I'm a specialist in private sector fundraising, I found my calling, and my calling is public speaking. Mm-hmm. And I think that what has changed in the message is not only talking about children who need us because they're hungry or they don't have proper clean water and sanitation or they don't have vaccinations. It's now I have a perspective of what it's like to face stigma and discrimination because of a disability. Yeah. And so in that, what's next is continue being, but I would say on a much stronger platform, is that voice for children with disabilities, children, or for anyone who is facing any sort of adversity in their life, for those who don't have a voice or need help finding, whether it's for advocating for others or whether it's just for they themselves to be happy and live life to the fullest. So the idea is finding as many channels and avenues as possible to share that message. And that can be through my own personal social media, Facebook. Mm-hmm. It can be setting up an awareness campaign with medical doctors and hospitals here in Atlanta to raise awareness. It can be speaking on behalf for UNICEF at UNICEF events, talking about children with disabilities and the challenges that they face. Just getting on with life.
Getting on with it. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps and just go for it. You are very inspiring. Could you just give a little bit of advice to anyone who's listening who might be facing a health crisis or some sort of diagnosis recently? Just some sort of inspirational words for them?
Sure. I think that you can empower yourself by learning. Learning not only about your condition and what is being done in the medical world, and that means going outside of your home country. I mean, I very much had to go many countries to be able to find support. Secondly, I think that in being vulnerable is probably the most powerful thing, empower oneself. Being vulnerable and asking other people for help, whether it's a cuddle, whether it's let's have a chat, whether it's help me pick this up. It took me a long time. I'm very stubborn, but to be able to actually enjoy the moment of being vulnerable and asking others for help, not only did it just help me get along, but it made me feel so much closer to them and they so much closer to me. People in your life can't and don't understand what you're going through, but if you can help them participate and support you in a little way, it will strengthen that bond. And when your relationships become stronger, whether your friends, your families, your colleagues, or even strangers on the street, I often have to stop and ask a stranger for help. You as a person are going to feel more fulfilled. And to take it one step further, get out of your own head by going and serving others. Whatever you're facing in your life, somebody else has it 10 times worse. They might have a health condition and they've lost their job, or their marriage is broken up, or someone's poor, or think about kids on the other side of the world. Even here, you don't even have to go on the other side of the world. In the United States, who face the trials and tribulations we don't have access to. You're sort of in a certain position in your life, and there are people who can't even probably won't ever live to experience many of the amazing things that we do, or even have access ever to a doctor. So get some perspective in life and hold on to that every single day.
Yeah, and there was one thing that you said that I read in one of your interviews, and you said you're left with a newfound appreciation for the smallest pleasures in life.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I can't do the salsa dancing the way I used to. You need your legs. But the pleasure of watching someone else dance, the pleasure of hearing an old song that I loved and close my eyes and let my body move and feel that. To say, do a different type of dance. Go to a club with friends or something and sort of latch onto the side of a bar or something like that and have a good shake. Those small little pleasures really make life wonderful.
Wonderful. Well, where can the listeners see more and hear more about you and follow you online and possibly reach out to you directly if they want to drop you a note?
Sure. I mean, you can look me up on Facebook, or Elizabeth Yar Khan. I do have a blog on Blogspot called Princess HIBM. There will be a website coming out soon called Princess Rising.
I love it.
And that will be announced on the blog and on Facebook. Those are probably the easiest ways to find me.
Thank you for tuning in, and make sure you subscribe to this channel to get your weekly fix for all you spiritual gangsters. Any questions or comments, go to my site at taramagalski.com. Drop me a note. I'd love to hear from you. And stay tuned for next week. I got the good stuff.